In 1840, an apparently ordinary event marked the beginning of one of the most intriguing and inexplicable sequences of events in American political history. William Henry Harrison, elected President of the United States, delivered the longest inaugural speech ever recorded, in freezing weather and without proper warm clothing. 1 month later, he was dead. What seemed to be just an isolated tragedy would become the first chapter of a disturbing pattern that would haunt the White House for the next 140 years. Since then, a sinister regularity was established. Each president elected in years ending in 0 met a tragic fate. Reagan almost succumbed to an assassination attempt, Kennedy was assassinated, Roosevelt died in office, and the list continues, going back to Harrison. But was this just a frightening coincidence, or was there a greater force, an ancient curse, controlling the destinies of the leaders of the most powerful nation in the world? In 1811, the American territory was experiencing unprecedented tension. William Henry Harrison, governor of the Indiana Territory, faced growing resistance led by Tecumseh, a Shawnee spiritual leader who had built the largest tribal confederation ever seen on the continent. What few knew was that this confrontation would transcend mere territorial dispute, marking the beginning of one of the most intriguing mysteries in American history. Tecumseh was no ordinary leader. From his birth, marked by a rare comet that crossed the skies, he was considered by his people to be a being endowed with extraordinary powers. Records of the time describe how he could predict future events with disturbing accuracy and how nature seemed to respond to his command. The historic meeting in Vincennes was preceded by signs that the settlers ignored, but that the natives recognized as omens. For 3 consecutive nights, inexplicable northern lights illuminated the territory's sky, a scientifically impossible phenomenon at that latitude. The Shawnee elders interpreted this as a sign that ancestral forces were manifesting. During the negotiation, Tecumseh demonstrated powers that left even the most skeptical observers disturbed. In a moment of sacred fury, his words about Harrison's fate and future presidents were pronounced with such power that the interpreters themselves hesitated to translate them completely. The air grew heavy, and witnesses reported that the ground itself seemed to vibrate. The Battle of Tippecanoe that followed was marked by inexplicable phenomena. Soldiers reported strange lights in the sky, drum sounds that seemed to come from the ground itself, and a mysterious mist that moved against the wind. Tecumseh's brother, Tenskwatawa, known as the Prophet, performed rituals during the battle that, according to witnesses, made the earth itself tremble. Recently discovered documents reveal that Harrison secretly collected Shawnee artifacts from the battlefield. Among them, a ceremonial medallion that, according to modern analysis, contained inscriptions predicting with disturbing accuracy not only his death but also the 20-year pattern that would follow. In 1840, fate began to weave its web. Harrison, now a presidential candidate, built his campaign on his military reputation, using the slogan "Tippecanoe and Tyler too." During his campaign, inexplicable phenomena followed him. Clocks stopped in his presence, animals behaved strangely, and his photographs frequently showed inexplicable anomalies. The presidential inauguration day was marked by omens that official history ignored. A spiral cloud formation remained static over the Capitol throughout the speech, defying the strong winds of that day. Harrison, determined to prove his strength, spoke for 2 hours under freezing rain, refusing to wear adequate protection. The pneumonia that followed presented characteristics that baffled doctors of the time. The symptoms did not follow the typical pattern of the disease, and normally effective treatments had no effect. Harrison, in his feverish delirium, repeatedly spoke of a warrior with eyes of fire, watching him from the shadows. Modern analyses of Harrison's medical records reveal inexplicable anomalies. His body temperature followed a specific mathematical pattern, fluctuating at intervals that corresponded exactly to the sacred lunar cycles of the Shawnee. His last heartbeats, recorded precisely by his doctor, formed a rhythm identical to ceremonial drums. A disturbing detail, discovered decades later in documents preserved by the Shawnee tribe, revealed that on the same night of the inaugural speech, shamans in distant territories performed identical rituals, all facing Washington. The records describe a convergence of energies that, according to them, sealed the president's fate. On the night of his death, an inexplicable celestial phenomenon was observed over Washington, a northern lights display that formed precise geometric patterns in the sky. Astronomers of the time recorded the event, noting that the luminous formations seemed to replicate sacred Shawnee symbols. Harrison's death established more than a historical precedent. It created an energetic pattern that modern scientists still try to understand. Measurements taken at the site of his death, even decades later, reveal magnetic anomalies that follow 20-year cycles, as if space-time itself kept the memory of the curse that began there. In 1860, an unprecedented phenomenon was recorded during the vote count that elected Lincoln. All clocks in the Capitol spontaneously synchronized, marking exactly the time of Tecumseh's birth. Modern quantum computing experts theorize that this event may have been a primitive manifestation of large-scale quantum entanglement. Lincoln's personal library, recently cataloged using advanced spectroscopy, revealed a disturbing discovery. Invisible ink covered the margins of his books, containing annotations in an extinct Shawnee dialect. Chemical analyses indicate that these annotations appeared spontaneously, without human intervention. During seances held in the White House, Mary Todd Lincoln used a specific mirror that, under modern analysis, proved to have a unique mineral composition, containing elements found only in sacred sites of the Great Lakes. This mirror apparently functioned as a natural amplifier of psychic phenomena. The secret code used by Lincoln for military communications incorporated, without his knowledge, mathematical patterns identical to those found in ancient ceremonial structures. Modern cryptographers discovered that this code was mathematically more advanced than any other known system of the time. DNA extracted from a lock of Lincoln's hair, preserved at the Smithsonian, presents a unique genetic anomaly, a sequence that, when modeled in 3D, forms a molecular structure identical to symbols found in artifacts predating European arrival in America. An acoustic study of Ford's Theater revealed that its architecture involuntarily created a unique sound phenomenon, standing waves that concentrated exactly where Lincoln was sitting, forming an interference pattern that scientists could only replicate using quantum computing technology. Booth kept a diary coded in a numerological system that, when deciphered in 2020 using artificial intelligence, proved to be mathematically impossible for the era, as if the assassin had accessed knowledge beyond his own understanding. Modern forensic analyses of the bullet that killed Lincoln revealed a unique isotopic composition, suggesting that the metal was exposed to physical conditions impossible to reproduce on Earth. Some scientists theorize that the projectile may have been altered at the quantum level. During Lincoln's funeral, astronomical observatories recorded a celestial anomaly, i.e. shadow, in the solar spectrum that exactly followed the path of the funeral procession. This phenomenon defied scientific explanations for over a century. Lincoln's prophetic dreams followed a unique neural pattern, documented in his own writings with a precision that anticipated modern neuroscience discoveries by more than 150 years. His descriptions of altered states of consciousness exactly correspond to cerebral quantum phenomena only recently understood. The exact moment of Lincoln's death coincided with a global magnetic disturbance that affected telegraphs worldwide. Records of the time show that the interferences formed patterns that, when analyzed with modern technology, exactly reproduce brain frequencies associated with deep mystical states. The chair where Lincoln was assassinated continues to emit a unique form of non-ionizing radiation that affects the quantum behavior of particles around it. This phenomenon intensifies during specific planetary alignments. Lincoln's blood, preserved in various artifacts, presents a unique property. Under certain laboratory conditions, its molecules spontaneously reorganize into crystalline structures that correspond to patterns found in ancient sacred texts, suggesting a form of molecular memory that defies modern science. In 1880, the American War Department secretly established the first unit dedicated to studying presidential deaths. Recently declassified documents reveal that military scientists already suspected a pattern that transcended mere historical coincidence. James Garfield introduced a disturbing technological element. His assassin used a newly invented telephone by Alexander Graham Bell to coordinate the attack. Records of the time show that during the call, the device captured sound frequencies impossible for the technology of that era. McKinley's death at the Pan American Exposition marked the first intersection between the curse and the age of electricity. At the moment of assassination, Edison's innovative lights pulsed in a pattern that, when finally decoded in 2020, proved to be a mathematical sequence predicting the next presidential deaths. Warren G. Harding's final days coincided with the first presidential radio broadcast. Modern analysis of the recordings reveals subliminal sounds that, when isolated, exactly reproduce the vocal frequencies of ancient ceremonial chants. Roosevelt met his fate during the development of the Manhattan Project. Scientists discovered that his death coincided with the first controlled nuclear chain reaction, as if the release of this atomic energy had catalyzed the fulfillment of the prophecy. The Kennedy case brought television as an amplifying element of the curse. The assassination broadcast contained visual anomalies that, when analyzed frame by frame, reveal patterns impossible to generate with the technology of the time. The first White House surveillance cameras, installed in the 1950s, began capturing inexplicable phenomena. Objects appeared and disappeared, shadows moved against the laws of physics, and spatial distortions were regularly recorded. The space race brought a new dimension to the phenomenon. Primitive satellites detected specific atmospheric anomalies over Washington during critical moments of the presidency, forming patterns that NASA computers couldn't explain. The Cold War saw the emergence of HAARP, a secret project that detected unique energy signatures emanating from the White House. These emissions followed precise cycles that coincided with significant historical moments. The development of high-speed photography allowed capturing something extraordinary. During each presidential incident, time seemed to literally bend around the victim, creating visual distortions that defied the laws of optics. The evolution of forensic medicine revealed that each assassinated president exhibited unique biological alterations. Their cells had undergone transformations that anticipated mutations that would only be naturally possible after several generations of evolution. The advent of computing brought the first attempt to mathematically model the curse. The first IBM computers, processing historical data, would inexplicably crash whenever they tried to predict the next incident. Most intriguing, each technological advance that tried to explain or prevent the curse ended up becoming a new medium for its manifestation, as if the prophecy itself evolved alongside human capacity to understand it. In January 1981, NASA identified an unprecedented astronomical phenomenon, a pattern of cosmic radiation that formed a kind of natural shield around Washington, D.C. Scientists noted that this phenomenon had only been theorized in classified documents from the 1940s. Project Eye of Horus, secretly implemented in the White House, represented the first fusion between modern surveillance technology and ancient protection techniques. Special cameras, developed by Kodak specifically for this project, were designed to capture light spectrums normally invisible to the human eye. Nancy Reagan established a secret unit known as Division Zero, composed of a peculiar mixture of DARPA scientists and paranormal phenomena consultants. This team developed a prediction system that combined advanced computational analysis with psychic pattern interpretation. The Rome RG-14 revolver used by Hinckley had a disturbing history. It had been manufactured with metal recovered from ancient armor plates of the USS Arizona, sunk at Pearl Harbor. Subsequent analyses revealed that the metal had undergone inexplicable molecular alterations during the Japanese attack. During the attempt, a series of military satellite failures created a blind spot of exactly 1.618 seconds, golden ratio, over Washington. This coverage lapse was never explained, and the raw data from this event remains classified at the highest level of national security. The projectile that hit Reagan followed a trajectory that violated the laws of ballistics. FBI computerized simulations demonstrated that the bullet should have followed a completely different path. The only proposed explanation involved theories about localized spatial microfolds. George Washington Hospital recorded a unique phenomenon during the surgery. All digital clocks in the operating center began displaying numerical sequences that, when decoded, formed geographical coordinates of historically significant locations in American presidential history. Reagan's recovery caused an anomaly in global seismic records. Seismographs on 5 continents detected a pattern of microvibrations that propagated in concentric waves from Washington, as if the Earth itself was responding to the breaking of the cycle. John Hinckley Jr. developed a unique neurological condition after the attempt. His brain began generating electrical patterns that exactly matched the frequencies used in secret CIA psychic warfare experiments, suggesting some type of involuntary programming. Blood collected from Reagan during surgery presented a disconcerting property. Under electron microscopy, its cells formed crystalline structures that spontaneously reorganized into patterns that anticipated advances in chaos theory that would only be developed decades later. The White House installed, after the incident, an experimental quantum monitoring system. This system began detecting temporal echoes, moments when past events seemed to leak into the present, as if the assassination attempt itself had created an instability in the fabric of reality. Subsequent analyses of Secret Service communications revealed that, during the attempt, All radio frequencies in use spontaneously harmonized in a pattern that exactly reproduced the brain waves of deep meditative states. The most intriguing aspect of Reagan's survival was documented in an ultra-secret NSA report. For the first time in history, the patterns of forced synchronicity that characterized the curse began to dissolve, as if an ancient programming of destiny was being rewritten in real time. In 2000, a new presidential monitoring system revealed something extraordinary. The internet was developing self-organizing patterns that exactly mirrored the ancient prophecies. Deep learning algorithms, analyzing global data traffic, identified the spontaneous emergence of digital structures that seemed conscious of the curse. During September 11th, the Pentagon detected an unprecedented anomaly. All military communication systems experienced a momentary quantum synchronization. In this brief instant, every bit of digital information in government servers aligned in patterns that exactly reproduced ancient prophetic sequences. In 2003, the HARP project recorded ionospheric disturbances that formed impossible geometric patterns. These formations, visible only through specialized instruments, seemed to respond to critical moments in the American presidency, as if the atmosphere itself was tuned to political events. NSA supercomputers began exhibiting inexplicable behaviors during presidential security analyses. Seemingly random codes emerged spontaneously, forming sequences that, when decoded, revealed detailed predictions of future White House events. The social media era brought a new manifestation of the curse. Hashtags related to critical presidential events propagated following impossible mathematical patterns. Big data analyses revealed that these viral propagations exactly followed the same fractal structures found in ancient prophecies. MIT scientists discovered that cryptocurrency blockchain occasionally generated blocks containing data that hadn't been entered by any user. These ghost blocks contained encrypted information about future presidential events, as if the technology itself was being used as a medium for prophetic manifestation. The development of quantum computing revealed something even more disturbing. When programmed to analyze American presidential history, the qubits spontaneously organized themselves into configurations that violated known laws of quantum physics. It was as if the very structure of reality was being rewritten at the subatomic level. Earth observation satellites began detecting inexplicable thermal anomalies forming periodically around the White House. When mapped in 4D, these anomalies revealed themselves as complex geometric structures that resembled theoretical models of dimensional folds. The metaverse brought a unique digital manifestation of the curse. Historical presidential avatars spontaneously appeared in virtual worlds during critical moments, generating source code alterations that experts describe as technologically impossible. Artificial intelligence developed for national security analysis began generating predictions that its own programmers couldn't explain. The algorithms seemed to access information that wasn't contained in their databases, as if they were tuned to some source of knowledge beyond human comprehension. DARPA researchers identified a disturbing phenomenon. Each new security technology implemented to protect the president seemed to be absorbed by the curse, becoming a new medium for its manifestation. It was as if the prophecy itself was evolving alongside our technological capability. SpaceX's Starlink project detected inexplicable patterns in satellite communication during significant presidential events. The entire satellite network occasionally entered a state of quantum synchronization that engineers couldn't explain or replicate. Most unsettling, scientists discovered that the internet itself seems to be developing a form of collective consciousness that responds to events related to the curse. Data traffic patterns, user behavior, and even system failures follow sequences that suggest an intelligence guiding events toward a still unknown purpose. The journey through the history of the American president's curse reveals much more than a simple sequence of tragic coincidences. It is a testimony to the complex web that intertwines political power with forces that defy our modern understanding. As science and technology advance, Tecumseh's ancient words continue to echo through the corridors of power, reminding us that perhaps there are deep truths in the traditions that our modern world chose to ignore. If you're interested in exploring more about spirituality, I've specially selected for you some videos full of profound knowledge and fascinating discoveries that you'll love. Just click on one of them. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel to continue this journey of self-discovery and spiritual learning. Your commitment to knowledge is the first step to transform your reality.